Hey gang, I'd like to talk to you about the exam, the genetics exam. So I want to point out to you that the genetics exam, if we look at the assignment sheet, is going to cover simple inheritance learning cycle, complex inheritance, chromosomal and sex linkage, nature versus nurture, and DNA and protein synthesis learning cycles. It will not cover biotechnology, nor will it cover the variation learning cycles. So you can think of this as a major exam, sort of like a midterm, if you will, because it will cover several learning cycles. And the format of the exam will be a two-part exam. Part A will be on Moodle and be very similar to the quizzes that you've taken on Moodle. So they will be solving problems. And part B will be sort of short answer problems. And so there will be questions, and you'll have to answer those questions. A lot of explaining things. There will also be at least one chi-square problem. You have to review the chi-square and how we used it. So let's talk a little bit more about the study resources. So if you're on the website, you go to the genetics page and you can go all the way down to study resources. You can click here or just go down to the bottom of the page. So there are a few things that you may not be aware of. Number one, there's an e-text. So what I've done is I've taught you information via video, but there are also readings that go with those topics. So for example, you look for inheritance of traits, you see Punnett square, there's a reading on Punnett squares. Or there's a reading about blood typing, nature versus nurture, an explanation of protein synthesis. Also notice though that there are multimedia as well, so there's some animations here. And more importantly, there are practice problems in some places. So you see practice quiz, some problem sets. These are things that, these are sort of extra problems. Many of them have, they should all have answers. So that's a good way to practice. And so if, go back to the site, there are also last year's quizzes for some of the topics are here. And if you go to them, they also have answers. So that will be helpful, hopefully. And probably the most important resource, of course, is the study guide. So the study guide gives you an overview of the vocabulary and the topics. So of course, you want to go here. Some people have suggested making flashcards. That might be useful. But I want you to understand that I'm not going to ask definitions. If you have noticed anything about the quizzes, typically you're applying things, and I just incorporate the vocabulary into the questions as my way to verify that you understand the vocabulary. So you want to, so use flashcards, but that will sort of be the bare minimum. You have to do a lot more than that. That's the types of vocabulary. There's a list of skills of things you should be able to do, or things you should be able to know. So for example, we look down here at the bottom about the chi-square stuff. We've used chi-square stuff to figure out certain things, so you want to refresh your memory of how we have used them. And so part B will focus a lot on some of these skills. Can you explain certain things? So you want to take a look at that. I'll also remind you that for most of the learning cycles, there was also a remediation plan. So if you look typically at the end of the learning cycles, you see a link to remediation plan. You see it there. You see it again there. And so at the end of the learning cycles, you want to take a look at those remediation plans. And for those who have used them in the past, it sort of gives you some readings, some practice problems, some worksheets and stuff, some tutorials to sort of reinforce some of that material. I strongly suggest you do that. The other thing you may not have considered is if you go back to Moodle, if you look at your past quizzes, you should be able to look at your past attempts at quizzes, and of course they share the answers. So that may also be a really nice resource as well. In addition to your notes, also don't forget there's the YouTube page, so you can rewatch any of the past videos. And finally, I'll point out that on the home page of the website, you can scroll down, and if you would like to meet with me, go to the appointment calendar, and I've recently added more office hours the week of the exam. So let me know if you have questions. Thank you very much.